Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
John, one of my politically plugged-in friends sent me this link, and I don't know if you have this or not. And it's funny, whenever I say this to John, do you have this link? Oh, yeah, I put it up 3 days ago. I put it up 22 times. Okay, John, I'm sorry. I'm not following your site as closely as I should. This was from KCTV. This was published, yesterday? Yes, yesterday at 11:17 morning. And it's about, the headline is, Missouri Appeals Court hears arguments linked to GOP vetting process. Do you know about this story?
No, I haven't seen this.
Okay.
No, tell me about it.
Says a showdown over who decides whom you can vote for played out in court on Tuesday in Kansas City. The Missouri Western District Court of Appeals heard arguments from attorneys representing the clerk in Vernon County and the Vernon County Republican Committee. The committee's chair, Cynthia Haggard, sued the clerk, Adrian Lee, for taking the filing fees of 8 candidates who refused to participate in the committee's new vetting process. The committee cited a state statute that requires candidate fees to be paid to the treasurer of the committee before filing with the clerk. Now, I believe, my memory serves me correct, isn't this the case that Mark McCluskey argued in Vernon County?
It is. It absolutely is, yeah.
And essentially what we're talking about is that in Vernon County, and it's in Franklin County as well, too, on our side of the state, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think there's a case going on it, but in several counties, if what you're getting at is several counties are doing this, then yep, you're absolutely right.
Right, and what it is the vetting process, that if you say you're a Republican and you go to the Central Committee and say, hey, I want to run for, House District 102 or whatever it is, and the Republican committee can say, well, we don't think you're a real Republican, so therefore we're not going to let you on the ballot, which essentially, did I sort of portray that correctly?
Yeah. You could call it, critics would call it a purity test. Yeah, for candidates. Yeah.
Right. And the person, matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, there is a new court in Missouri. It's called the...
Oh, no. Is it? Does it have to do with someone that lives in Portland Place?
No, it has. As a matter of fact, the new court is called the Missouri Rhino Court, and the Chief Justice is Tracy Ellis.
No.
Yes, the Chief Justice is Tracy Ellis, and she essentially, you go to her and you go in front of her, and she asks you all the questions. Did you vote for Ronald Reagan? I wasn't born yet. Well, did your mom vote for Ronald Reagan? And she asks you all these questions, and then she determines, you're a rhino, you can't get on the ballot. And that's what happens. They throw you off. That's
remarkable. And we have been on the air for 4 days this week, and we have made 5 independent, separate Tracy Ellis references, Brad. Way to go. We're at 1.25 references per day.
John's the official statistician of the BJ Show. Okay. The last segment, couple things, notes that I took yesterday. I found this fascinating. Okay, this is actually a for real survey done by a very respected organization, McKinsey and Company. You know who McKinsey and Company is, right?
Oh, yeah. We did a lot of work with McKinsey, yeah.
A big accounting firm, and they also do research, market research and stuff like that. Correct, John?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, they make a pretty penny to give really good data to corporations. Yeah, they're a great outfit.
And you would rate them as being very reliable?
If you had an unlimited budget, go out and hire McKinsey today.
So they're sort of like the gold-plated standard for market research and things like that, correct?
What your generation would call the Cadillac version, yes, Brad. Now, my generation would call it something different, but you would call it the Cadillac, yep.
You'd call it the Hyundai because it's easily stolen, right? Okay.
That's right. Go ahead.
McKinsey and Company's Mobility Consumer Pulse for 2024, released this month, found that 46% of EV owners in the U.S. said they were very likely to switch back to owning a gas-powered car in the next purchase. 46%. So,
Brad, you and I talked about this on the show.
Almost half the people that have bought EVs go don't want that anymore. Matter of fact,
yeah. And the number of folks that would consider a hybrid is increasing, but folks are moving away from the strict EV according to the data. Now, Brad, we talked about this exact survey. I want to say about 3 weeks ago. We talked about this exact survey.
Was that the one we talked about?
Yeah, we talked about. Yeah, it was because and that number, I remember it. I believe it was around 46. We talked. Yeah, we did talk about this.
Okay, two other things I heard on other talk stations. One of which is really funny. I can't remember who I heard it on first. They played a quote. They played an audio cut from a speech. I don't know who he was giving it to. A speech that John Kerry was giving. And he was giving these statistics, and he was saying, in 5 years, in the summer, there will be no more Arctic ice. The Arctic cap will be liquefied. It will be water, and the oceans will rise. And he's giving this whole thing, okay? Then the host comes on and says, okay, guess when that speech was made? 15 years ago. So in other words, he's saying in 5 years, which would have been 10 years ago, I mean, because it's 15 years ago. 10 years ago, the Arctic caps would have been frozen, would have been unfrozen, the whole bit. I'm going, oh my God. Now,
it's so great to look back and see some of the predictions from before 2000, because folks that weren't around in that era probably don't remember this. But when everybody assumed that the world would come crashing down, the year 2000 was a great milestone for people to be like, well, there's not going to be any more human life at the year 2000, and the whole deal with the polar ice caps and things like that.
Well,
and there are Twitter accounts that go through and will pull headlines exactly what you're talking about, Brad.
Remember the on midnight at on 1999 where we switched to Jan 1st of 2000, planes were going to fall out of the sky, and everybody's bank account was going to be wiped out. You wake up on January 1st and there would be no money in your account anymore and stuff like that.
Yes.
It didn't happen. Okay. Now, the other thing, and I've heard this, and I found this story, and it is sort of weird that, and I guess this is public information, they have gone into the real estate financing of President Biden. And he has now, I think he has 3 homes or something like that. But over the past 20 years, and the numbers are somewhat staggering. I don't know the exact numbers. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe the number is 35. He's refinanced his house 35 times over like the past 20 years.
Oh, that's all?
Well, I'm going like, no, hold on a minute. Why would you be? And once again, it's to the point where it's like, now, why would you be doing that? And the interesting part of it is his one house that he's owned for, 30 years or stuff like that, he still has a mortgage on it. He still owes like $500,000. Now, his net worth is $10 million, okay? He makes $400,000 a year as the President of the United States. Now, here's the interesting thing. You and I have talked about this before. You could say, well, $400,000, nowadays that's not a lot of money. John, if you got $400,000 a year and you didn't have to have a car. You didn't have a car payment. You didn't have to worry about getting your car, fixed or putting gas in it or oil change and stuff like that. You didn't have to worry about a house because of the fact that you lived in government housing, a.k.a. the White House. You didn't have to worry about food because you had government chefs that took care of you.
Yeah.
You never had to, if you wanted to fly somewhere, you didn't have to worry about, booking a flight on Southwest.com. You just essentially, hey, well, let's fly to Poughkeepsie, New York. And the Secret Service pick you up and they drive you to, Andrews Air Force Base? I always get Edwards and Andrews. Is Andrews the one on East Coast?
It's Andrews, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm tracking with you. I got all that stuff for free.
Okay, you got all that stuff for free. So you could take $400,000 a year. You obviously take your taxes out of there. Let's say when the dust settled, you had, $250,000, $300,000. I mean, that's like you're living on like top of the world. I mean, and if you're the president already, if you figure, let's say after the taxes is done, he puts $250,000 is what he gets in his hand after take $150,000 out for taxes and stuff like that. He's been the president for 3 years. 3 times 150 is $450,000. Couldn't he just paid off his house? But yet, why?
Maybe. But I'd buy probably by that math about 3,000 pairs of Hoka transports. They have the Jill Biden box in them, they got the wide box. That's what I would do, Brad. But I don't know. Maybe he's not a shoe guy. And in Joe Biden's defense, I would assume, Brad, if he's doing all that refinancing, I'm sure you're on the same page with this, but I'm sure that he has somebody that manages his real estate stuff that needs to show that they have some kind of value. So whoever still has a brain and isn't senile, this person is able to go to them and be like, hey, I saved you a little money. I refinanced again. I know that we just did it 8 months ago, but look, we got a great deal on rates and we refinanced. That person has to show their worth. So they're going to it's like if you had a stockbroker that would constantly move your money around to show action. You get what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't blame Joe Biden for the refinancing. Joe Biden has no idea what his houses are worth or probably where they are anymore.
Okay, here's the article. I just found it. New York Post was published on the 25th. And by the way, some people may go, oh, the New York Post. The New York Post, I don't know if you know this or not, is the oldest newspaper, the oldest still publishing newspaper in the country. Did you know that?
Thought it was the Thrifty Nickel.
I think the Thrifty Nickel's gone.
Are you sure it's not the Community News up in Florissant, Brad? You know, for only $20, you can buy a year's of the back page.
I'm not.
It's better than holler for $1. At least the Community News person doesn't badmouth their own outlet.
Okay, here we John on his little subtext star. Okay, here's the title. Joe and Jill Biden refinanced their Delaware home 20 times, raking in $4.2 million from the $350,000 property. Okay, and the story goes on. Okay, and the first paragraph is, hail to the cha-ching. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden treated their various Delaware real estate holdings like a personal ATM for years, taking out several mortgages and refinancing a whopping 35 times, according to a report. The couple, said to boast the net worth of $10 million, allegedly borrowed $6 million in the property over the decades. And let me see. I got to read more. If it's gonna, it may not let me. I have to sign up or something like that. I mean, let me see if I can keep going. The wheeling and dealing dates back to the late 1970s, shortly after Joe and Jill were married. The pair have negotiated new mortgages or credit deals approximately every 17 months, according to the Daily Mail.
Nice. That's good. A little churn and burn. I like it.
Right. The frequent refinancing has raised eyebrows. Quote, it doesn't make a lot of sense unless they are desperate for cash, a fine expert comment to the outlet. Does the store continue? The revelations add a layer of intrigue as the president faces scrutiny over his family's financial past. The Biden's current resident, a mansion purchased in 1996, still has an outstanding $541,000 mortgage nearly 3 decades later. The president's previous Wilmington home, bought in 1975 for $185,000 and offloaded in 1996 for $1.2 million, had 15 mortgages and lines of credits attached before being sold to the vice chairman of credit card company MBNA, Delaware's largest employer, which reportedly hired Hunter Biden that same year. Oh, wow.
MBNA hired Hunter Biden? Yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah. That's nice to know.
Why would anyone, this is a quote, why would anyone view their home as an ATM? LA realtor Tony Morato, founder of RubyHomes.com, asked the Daily Mail. Over time, mortgage fees really add up. Paying off a mortgage is like a forced savings account that bears modest interest. Records show the Bidens purchased their current 4-acre spread for $350,000 in 1996 and have since leveraged it 20 different times with home credit agreement and mortgages totaling $4.23 million. It's a $350,000 piece of property. They've refinanced it, netting $4.23 million. Okay, John, if that were you and me doing that kind of stuff, I can hear the knock on the door. Dink, 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 dink. And you open the door.
Yeah.
And there's
the alphabet boys would show up. And I don't mean the triangle people.
Right.
I mean the other alphabet boys.
The IRS, the FBI.
Yeah, DEA maybe.
Right.
For you, Brad. For your illegal dispensary running out of Hazelwood.
How many? I know that there's a current situation. Part of the reason they claim that the real estate market is so tight right now is because the people do want to move up to a bigger house, or in some cases downsize to a smaller house if they're doing the empty nest things. But they don't want to get away from their 2 or 3% mortgage interest, because if they if they take out a new mortgage, it's going to be 7 or 8%. So
yeah, they got it locked in.
Right. So that's why I'm like, well, maybe when the mortgage rates come down, we'll think about moving and stuff like that. I don't. There are things like this I read. I'm going like, okay, if that were like regular, pardon the pun, regular Joe, like Joe Combest or Joe Hildebrand.
Joe Sixpack, yeah.
I mean, the crazy thing about this is that one of the things that came out with the whole Hunter Biden thing and with the the Biden family in general and his brother Jim Biden, there's a thing the banks were forced into years ago by, I think the Federal Reserve, might be the IRS, called SAR. Are you familiar with an SAR
No,
is?
I don't know what that is.
SAR is a suspicious activity report. The banks are required, if all of a sudden one day, like let's say over the past 3 years, you have an average balance in your checking account of $900. That's your average balance. You put your money in, put your paycheck in, you write checks. So your daily balance is like, let's say $900. Okay. All of a sudden, if your balance goes to $2 million overnight, the bank's going, oh, hold on a minute. How come the last 3-4 years this guy's got $900 in the account? All of a sudden he's got $2 million in the account. They file a SAR against you, which goes to the IRS and I guess some other government agencies, and then they come in and they look at that like, okay. Now, the story is that with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, Hunter's uncle, Joe Biden's brother, that there are dozens of SARs have been filed against them because the banks are going like, okay, this is sort of weird. We get this money coming in.
Where did the cash come from? Yeah, follow the money.
Yeah, a wire transfer comes in from China or it comes in from Ukraine, and like, okay, this is sort of weird. How many people get wire transfers of 6 and 7 figures from foreign governments and going like, okay, you and me, we'd be sitting in a room where they're asking questions all day long, right? Am I kidding about that?
No, you're absolutely right. And when you finally sell that transmitter land to China, Brad, I know that you and Bill Eigel have some disagreements about that. But when you finally sell that patch of land to China, you're going to get one of those. And I'll be right there for you during the audit, Brad. I mean, I won't be in the room with you, but I'll be there
so
with
much,
moral
John.
support.
Last but not least, Boeing's, here we go. Here's another bizarre story. Boeing's biggest union has 32,000 members. Boeing's biggest union is demanding a 40% pay raise.
That's it?
40%. International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, which represents Boeing machinists in Seattle, is demanding the pay rise as part of a deal to secure work for the next 50 years as the company reels from a string of safety and production scandals. The union is also seeking guarantee that new narrow-body plane will be built in Seattle, forestalling any bid to cut costs by shifting production. John Holden, president of the union's District 751 branch, said, quote, "We have a lot of leverage right now, and we're going to use it. We're going to push them further than they ever would think. They're going to go on wages and job security." Because
I love your union voice, Brad. You sound just like Jimmy Hoffa there. And now, coming to the stage, Josh Hawley Hoffa.
Right. So they're essentially saying Boeing is vulnerable right now because of all the,
Yeah, let's kick them while they're down.
40%, okay? Already.
Hey, but that's the Brad, that tracks very closely with inflation, though.
Yeah, right. 40%.
It's like a cost of living increase. If you take a look at inflation, I mean,
have you heard this story? And I've heard it on a couple different stations. I've yet to find it online. Supposedly, a guy has a list and he has. I don't shop at Walmart with a shopping list, online. Supposedly you can do a list on Walmart where you can go and but
the guy they did the gimmick of here's what he paid 4 years ago and here's what he's paying now.
Do you know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's all over. Yeah, I don't know if it's real or not. It looks quite staged and fake.
Well,
but it could be real.
The story was he has his list of what he bought 2 years ago. I think he says 2 years ago. And essentially he has his list exactly what he bought 2 years ago, and it totals $120. So you can hit a reorder button, and it will essentially do the same list. It will essentially buy everything that you bought previously at a shopping experience, and he went back and found one 2 years ago, and he hit the reorder button. It's like $400 now. I don't necessarily believe $400. If you told me $200, I would believe that. Maybe $250. Maybe
the point is taken, and Republicans and conservatives and libertarians will share that, whether it's real or not, because it shows how inflation has gone nuts.
Well, it's just like when I told you, remember we talked about this, you thought it was funny, when I went to Wally World that one day and they had corn shucks for $8. I'm going like,
yeah,
why would you pay $8 for corn shucks or hucks or whatever they call them? I mean, like, why would you do that? Remember, we got the feedback that, you use those for tacos or tortillas or something like that? Remember
I think some people do. Yeah, I mean, now shucks for $1 is better than holler for $1. And I would also point out, Brad, that thanks to you and the listener that sent it to you, I have the KCTV link about candidate vetting up today. You can find it at johncombest.com. Thank you to you, Brad, and to the listener for sharing that. I missed that this morning.
I try to help out John from time to time. And let's say in a given week, I find 10 articles that I think, hey, John, this should be on johncombest.com. And 9.5 times, John will come back with me, Brad, I had that up 2 weeks ago. Or Brad, I had that up when I was in high school. Okay, John.
It happens.
I'm a little bit.
But I appreciate it when you share anything like that, because as I remind people, I'm human, Brad. I miss stories all the time, and I appreciate people sharing them with me.
John, you know what we got to miss?
We got to miss the Big D.
We got to miss being on the air anymore because it's time for us to get out of here.
Oh, drats. Brad, I will see you on what Shelley Barr used to call Friday.
We'll talk tomorrow.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?